Night, a fascinating matchup. 9-3 Browns, 7-5 Ravens. Browns coming off a huge and very impressive win against the Titans, where they looked great. The quarterback Baker Mayfield looked great. But in important places, there is still doubt about just how good this team is. Here's a note. Despite their impressive record, they actually have a negative point differential this season. The 19th overall in that category. The only team with a winning record with a worse differential is the Raiders, who are at -24. And maybe that's part of the reason for this. Our friends at Caesars William Hill and our own analytics, FPI, view Cleveland as the underdog. Monday night, they're given only a 34% chance to win by FPI, and Caesars has them as a 2-point underdog. This despite the fact that they have a 2-day advantage in rest and are 2 games clear of their opponent, Baltimore, in the standings. So it really sort of leads one to think Vegas isn't buying into the Cleveland Browns. Bart Scott, are you?
I believe that they're a good football team, but I do believe that when they're out in the world, they're Roscoe Jenkins. But when they come back to home, which is, the AFC North, they're just R.J. Stevens, and they get treated as such. They get the atomic wedges. They're coming back with Big Brother.
Get that. I get that.
Exactly. That's what I'm speaking over their head. So when you look at it, they get beat up by Big Brother all day, because you look at when they played the Ravens, when they played the Steelers, they got shellacked, right? You look at when they played the Ravens, it was the week 1, but it was 38-6. Then we thought that the Browns had arrived and they were ready to go. Then they got beat up by the Pittsburgh Steelers. So what happens is if the Browns are going to get some respect, they're going to have to beat their big brother at something eventually. And they're going to have 2 opportunities, because they also have another game with the Steelers. Can Baker Mayfield put a performance up like he put up the other day? I think not, because if there's one weakness for this Baltimore Ravens, it's the fact that they gave up 4.4 yards against the Cowboys last week. And also, when you think about the first game, both Kareem and Nick Chubb had over 4 yards to carry against them. So it's impressive. They have to make sure that they let Baker Mayfield hand the ball off and not fall for this fool's goal that we saw last week with him throwing the ball for over 300 yards.
So, RC, I feel like I want to ask you the same question. Vegas is not buying the Browns. They're going to need to prove it to people this weekend. Are you buying them?
I mean, the one thing I learned from Sam Rothstein is that, the casino going to win. Vegas going to win. So it kind of makes me scared. But when you look at what the Cleveland Browns have become, they're a different team. And obviously, if you go back to this team early on in the season when they had Odell Beckham Jr., when Kevin Stefanski was kind of enamored with that talent, and so was Baker Mayfield, this team didn't necessarily have the identity that it had now. This team didn't have to go through games without Nick Chubb to realize how valuable he was. And last week, they had an opportunity to go against the Tennessee Titans, and it was big on big, like the Migos said. How you go big on big, and they won. Nick Chubb was the better runner. The Cleveland Browns were more physical up front. Baker Mayfield was better protected, and Kevin Stefanski dialed up the better plays on the outside to get him clean throws. That's what they have to do this week. And the one thing that I know about the Cleveland Browns right now is they understand they have to beat Big Brother. They know that when they go home, that Cedric the Entertainer is waiting there for Roscoe Jenkins and his new bougie girlfriend, and you can't be driving around with Louis luggage when you got to kick her out. And so when I look at this game, the Cleveland Browns understand what's ahead of them. I think Baker Mayfield still has a ton to prove. He's playing with that underdog mentality. But Nick Chubb, not Lamar Jackson, not Mark Ingram, not J.K. Dobbins, will be the best runner on the field, and I know the Cleveland Browns will start with him.
All right, so Ninkovich, I'm coming to you. Who wins this game? Are the Browns ready to punch Big Brother in the face, or does Baltimore sort of maybe establish themselves as the team we thought they were and leave Cleveland behind?
I think the Ravens are going to be able to get it done just based on the fact that they've been able to do that, and they know how to beat the Browns. How do you beat the Browns? You make Baker Mayfield throw from the pocket. You make him make plays out of the pocket. And look at, first the Tennessee Titans, at the end of the game, he fumbled a quarterback sneak and basically could have potentially lost that game for the Browns. And, afterwards, it's like when you trip your brother or sister and everyone saw you do it, and then you turn around and you're like, I didn't trip him. What are you talking about? He's looking around like, I didn't fumble. You clearly fumbled. You fumbled that ball. They pick it up. They almost score out of that deal. They do score there, and you made it a game out of that. So it's not so much a question on the Browns. It's a question on Baker Mayfield. People still have questions about him because if you take away the running game, which the Ravens going into this game are going to say, we got to stop the run. If we don't stop the run, we're going to lose. Clearly. So you stop the run, put it in Baker's hands. Can he win? I don't think so. I don't think Baker can do it on his own.
We're going to find out super quick, Bart. Again, as my former Raven, I just have a moment for this. How about their side of it? What's at stake for the Ravens in this game?
Well, I think, when you look at this game, I don't think this is the end-all, be-all. But I think what they want to do is be able to win in front of Cleveland. When you look at it, the Ravens still have, like, the weaker schedule after they play the Browns. I think I have both of these teams, if the Cleveland Browns lose, at 11-5, which means one of these teams are going to be in danger of not making the playoffs at 7-5. With the extra slot, you think that they'll be the lower seed. But, Cleveland still has to play Pittsburgh. Baltimore has homecoming games after Cleveland after this.
It's going to be a very interesting weekend. Guys, sit tight because we have a ton more NFL. Like so much is Mike Reese, our Patriots reporter, who joins us live here this morning. And obviously it was a bad night and felt like the end of something in so many ways, Mike. So I want to just throw some names at you and you tell me what we should reasonably expect about their futures in New England. And let's start with the obvious one. Let's start with Cam Newton.
Well, Greeny, everyone has loved having Cam Newton that I've spoken with in the Patriots organization, but eventually they're going to have to ask themselves the question if they can live with the limitations that they've had in the passing game this year, and also if they've put Cam in the best position to succeed with the weapons they've put around him. And Greeny, I'd also add this. Cam has a stake in this as well. He's spoken a couple times this season about how, he's away from his kids and he wakes up angry because of that. It's unknown if he would even want to stick around if the Patriots decided they wanted to keep working with him.
So at the risk of asking you to guess, which I know reporters never like to do, would you describe it as unlikely that Cam Newton is the Patriots quarterback next year?
I think that's fair, Greeny, and I come back to this. Bill Belichick has said over the years the two things he asks for in his quarterbacks more than anything: accuracy and decision-making, and those have been uneven, as we saw last night from Cam over the course of the year.
All right, so then the obvious next one I come to is Jarrett Stidham. How should we be looking at his future in New England?
Well, he has 2 years left on his contract, so he's definitely going to be here. The question really is in what role. And after so much promise as a rookie, and it looked like he might be the top candidate to replace Tom Brady, he couldn't even beat out veteran Brian Hoyer at the start of this year. So, Greeny, I think it's fair to deduce that the Patriots have some serious questions as to whether he can be a quarterback to build around.
Okay, and then that brings us to the offensive coordinator, Josh McDaniels, who's been a head coach before. Clearly, we would expect there to be interest in him around the league this offseason. How should we assess his future in Foxborough?
Well, Greeny, he's on the record as saying he would love another chance to be a head coach if that opportunity presents itself. And one thing we've seen over past off seasons, he's been very selective in how he goes through that process. This year in New England, he's been sort of asked to build the house with not a lot of tools, and he wouldn't be human if he wasn't a little bit frustrated by that. So it will be intriguing to see how that maybe impacts his approach this offseason with any vacant jobs.
I get it. I feel like I need to ask you one more, and that is just simply this. You're around them as much as anybody. Is there any indication whatsoever that Belichick is thinking about moving on, retiring, or moving somewhere else, or going up to the front office, literally anything?
Zero, Greeny, and I would point to this. His son, Steven, is calling the defensive plays, and I think that means a lot to Bill Belichick. He loves that connection. His other son, Brian, is the safeties coach. I feel like it's almost all in the family here, and he really appreciates that and wants to keep going with it.
All right, outstanding, Mike. Thank you. That's a great question, Mike. I'm glad you asked that. Thank you very much, as always, for getting up with us here. We appreciate it. Let me go back to my crew here. And Ninko, he just basically said exactly what you said. So give me the same assessment of, well, actually, let's go as broad as we can. Rob Ninkovich, is the starting quarterback week 1 of next year for the New England Patriots currently on their roster?
No, he's not. No, he's not. And my question right now would be, why aren't the Patriots trying to figure out what they have right now on their roster? There's a difference between going into a game as, the backup quarterback that week you're doing scout team reps, and then during the game the starting quarterback doesn't play well, then you go in the game. So Stidham really hasn't had the opportunity to prepare for a game like you would if you were named the starter going into the week. So if I was the Patriots, I would want to know, okay, what do we have with Stidham here? Give him a week to prepare with the first team, get the first team reps, go into a football game and play as the starter from the start of the game, not coming into the third quarter when you're down 20, 4 points or whatever they were down. So at this point right now, they need to figure out what Stidham can do for them so they can evaluate after the season's over what they have in the quarterback room.
And then on the other side of it, RC, I feel like you and I and many others were really sort of hoping that Cam Newton would have a